Hello, BayInfotech is an award-winning Cisco partner with strong expertise across SD-WAN. BayInfotech leverages its VidPass platform to provide users and partners dozens of hands-on labs without the need for a real kit on-prem. Let's begin to see what you will learn about Cisco SD-WAN. What is SD-WAN? SD-WAN is a part of the broader technology of software-defined networking. It's about applying the concepts of SDN to the wide area networking space. The three things driving software-defined wide area networking are efficiency, experience, and security. When we talk about efficiency, the network landscape is changing. So far as there are multiple transports available and multiple enterprises want to be able to leverage the fact that these transports exist. In addition to being able to leverage these transports, they actually want to manage them in a simplified fashion as well. Coming to experience, all the enterprises, service providers, and all entities care about the quality of experience that they get for their applications. So the network now needs to be intelligent and smarter about providing that quality of experience, as well as being able to provide visibility into what's happening with the applications in this environment. And finally, security. This is a huge factor. Every enterprise, every customer, and every entity need to have strict controls for audit and compliance, as well as be better prepared to face changing threats in the networking landscape. SD-WAN is also referred to as intent-based networking. Let's look how it simplifies things for us. Intent-based networking boils down to three main aspects: translation, activation, and assurance. Translation, which is to capture your business goals. What is it that you want from a business perspective? That's nothing but refers to translating business objectives into list objects inside the Cisco SD-WAN vManage infrastructure. Activation is to be able to translate these business goals into policy directives so that they take effect in your infrastructure. That is leveraging the policy framework in this centralized platform to deliver the activation of the business policies. Assurance is to have visibility into what's happening into your infrastructure. Assurance is giving us monitoring and troubleshooting capabilities for the overall infrastructure. Let's look into the few advantages and capabilities of SD-WAN that helps in reducing cost and complexity. Well, a few of them being separation of management, control, and data plane for scaling, redundant management, cloud or on-premise, zero-touch provisioning in minutes and not days, segmentation support for fast application deployment, choice of topologies with point and click, complete visibility from a single pane of glass. Cisco's offering with SD-WAN are comprehensive and flexible to fit your business. Starting from your devices. That could be physical secure routers or virtual secure routers, which can be hosted on-prem or in the cloud, can be managed by our internal IT team or contracted out as a managed service. The billing could be based on annual subscription or an enterprise-based agreement. Ultimately, what we're seeing here is how our data plane, control plane, management plane, and orchestration plane are bifurcated here for ease of management, right? So what we see here is ultimately the Cisco vManage provides single pane of glass for day 0, day 1, and day 2 operations. Its multi-tenant web-scale architecture caters to the needs of the enterprise and the service providers alike. GUI with RPAC, software upgrades, programmatic interfaces, highly resilient, right? Now, Cisco vSmart controllers are a scale out control plane functions of the Cisco SD-WAN fabric. vSmart controllers facilitate fabric discovery by running the overlay management protocol, the OMP between themselves and between the vEdge routers. Together with vEdge routers, vSmart controllers act as a distribution system for the pertinent information required to establish the data plane connectivity directly between the vEdge routers. This information includes service, LAN side reachability, transport, WAN side IP addressing, IPsec encryption keys, site identifiers, and so on. vSmart controllers also distribute data plane and application-aware route policies to the vEdge routers for enforcement. Control policies acting on the control plane information are locally enforced on the vSmart controller. These control plane policies can implement service chaining, various types of topologies, and generally influence the flow of traffic across the fabric. The use of a centralized control plane dramatically reduces the control plane load traditionally associated with building large-scale IPsec networks, solving the n to the power 2 complexity problem. The vSmart controller's deployment model does not only solve the horizontal scale issue, but also provides high availability and resiliency. vSmart controllers are often deployed in geographically dispersed data centers to even further reduce the likelihood of control plane failure. When delivered as a cloud service, vSmart controllers are redundant, hosted in Viptela Cloud. When deployed as an on-prem solution by the customer, it is the responsibility of the customer to provide adequate infrastructure resiliency. Now, going to the Cisco vBond is an orchestrator, is a multi-tenant element of the Cisco SD-WAN fabric. It facilitates the mutual discovery of the control and management elements of the fabric by leveraging a zero trust certificate-based whitelisted model. It automatically distributes list of vSmart controllers and manage system to the vEdge routers during the bring up process. For situations where vSmart controllers, vManage system, or the vEdge router themselves are behind NAT, vBond orchestrator facilitates the function of NAT traversal by allowing learning public and private IP addresses. The discovery of public and private IP addresses allows establishing connectivity across public and private WAN transports. vBond orchestrator itself should reside in the public IP space or reside on the private IP space with 1:1 NAT. When delivered as a cloud service, vSmart controllers are redundantly hosted in Viptela Cloud. When deployed as an on-prem solution by the customer, it is the responsibility of the customer to provide adequate infrastructure resilience. So this is all that we've spoken about. Now talking about the data plane, which consists of your Cisco vEdge, ISR, ASR, the virtual ISR. So Cisco vEdge routers are the data plane elements of the Cisco SD-WAN fabric. They are, in a sense, WAN edge routers positioned everywhere SD-WAN fabric needs to be extended to. vEdge routers are responsible for encrypting and decrypting application traffic between the sites. As mentioned earlier, vEdge routers establish control plane relationship with vSmart controller to exchange pertinent information required to establish the fabric and learn centrally provisioned policies. Data plane and application-aware routing policies are implemented on the vEdge routers. vEdge routers export performance statistics as well as alerts and events to centralized vManage system for a single pane of glass operation. vEdge routers leverage standards-based OSPF and BGP routing protocols for learning reachability information from service-side interfaces and for brownfield integration with non-SD-WAN sites. vEdge routers have very mature full-stack routing implementation, which accommodates simple, moderate, and complex routed environments. For layer 2 redundant service side interfaces, vEdge routers implement VRRP, first hop redundancy protocol, which can operate on a per VLAN basis. Well, there's a lot more to vEdge routers. They can be brought online in a full zero-touch deployment fashion or by requiring administrative approval. Zero-touch deployment relies on the use of signed certificates installed in the onboard tamper-proof module. The TPM, known as to establish unique router identity. Finally, vEdge routers are delivered in both physical or virtual form factors. Physical form factors are deployed as appliances with either 100 MB, 1 GB, or 10 GB based on the throughput needs. The virtual form factor can be deployed in public clouds such as AWS and Microsoft Azure, or as an NFV on the vManage. platforms leveraging KVM or ESXi hypervisors. Now, talking about the different kinds of VPNs, right? We have three kinds, which is VPN 0, VPN 512, and VPN 1 to 511. VPN 0 referred to as transport VPN. They are nothing but the interfaces connecting the WAN. The management VPN connecting for out-of-band management of devices or your controllers. And VPN 1 to 511 referred to as service VPN, which are interfaces connecting to the LAN network. Now, to understand the basic Cisco SD-WAN fabric operation, let's look at the simple example. Let's consider a starting point where vSmart controllers had been brought online and two VEdge routers, one at each remote site, are trying to connect as a part of a zero-touch provisioning bring-up process. A bidirectional certificate exchange will happen between the VEdge routers and the vSmart controllers, where both parties will authenticate and authorize each other. VEdge identity is based on the signed certificate inside the onboard TMP module inserted during the time of manufacturing. vSmart identity is based on the enterprise or public PKI signed certificate loaded during the vSmart controller deployment phase. Subsequent to the successful bidirectional authentication and authorization, a TLS or DTLS connection will come up between the VEdge routers and the vSmart controller. OMP protocol will establish peering across the TLS DTLS connections between the VEdge routers and the vSmart controller, and following the OMP advertisements. IPsec connection will automatically come up. Once IPsec connections are established, each VEdge router will initiate BFD, that is bidirectional forward detection probing mechanism, across the IPsec connection to determine up or down state, loss, latency, jitter, and maximum path MTU. The next step is to determine reachability for the local service side networks behind each VEdge router. Each VEdge router will use local mechanisms to determine its local networks, which can be directly connected subnets, statically defined subnets, or dynamically learned subnets through OSPF or BGP. VEdge router will place the learned subnets into the relevant VPN based on the inbound service, side interface, or sub interface, and advertise the reachability to the vSmart controller using OMP update message. vSmart controller will in turn pass this advertisement to the VEdge router in the topology, and the same process will occur for the other VEdge router, and bidirectional connectivity between the service side subnets will be established. As new subnets or new VPNs become part of the fabric, the same process will continue. If implementation includes data or application-aware routing policies, such policies will be communicated to the relevant VEdge routers in OMP updates for distributed enforcement in case of control policies. They will be enforced on the vSmart controller and will not be communicated to the VEdge routers. Now, let's have a look at the policy framework. So you have the policy framework, which are into two categories, which is centralized policies and local policies, post which you'll see that policies are configured centralized, which means they're configured on the vSmart controllers. Localized are constructed on the vEdge routers. Well, policies are used to influence the flow of data traffic among the vEdge routers in the overlay network. So the policy comprises of control policy and data policy. The control policy takes effect on the control plane and the data policy on the data plane. So under these, you have something called as centralized and localized, which we've spoken about. Centralized affects the network-wide routing. Localized is a route policy which takes effect in the local network, right? So in my mind, there is no question that SD-WAN is an innovation that improves the end user experience. This feature, from my experience, really resonates with customers and facilitates them buying into the SD-WAN technology. Now that you're familiar with what SD-WAN is, if you are interested in how BitPass can help you and your team learn about SD-WAN, or one of the many SD-WAN lab within BitPass, please reach out to your BayInfotech representative. Thank you.